The McRib is back.
Man, I'll tell you what, I don't even know if I need to do any macro or any analysis. If it's McRib season, we are golden, guys. I don't know if you all know about the McRib effect. Coinbase knows. Check this out. Coinbase said it. McRib is back. It's the season. Support confirmed. Let's go. I don't know if you all have seen this chart, but McRib returns, Bitcoin surges. McRib returns, Bitcoin surges. There's even a freaking Yahoo article about this. About some claim Bitcoin and the S&P tend to perform well after McRib makes a comeback, particularly in 2017, 2020, 2021. Coincidentally, when the McRib returned to stores in December of 24, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. Could we see it again? Man, I hope so. I hope so. How's everybody doing today? This is episode 96 of the live stream. We've been crushing it. Markets are turning around a little bit. It was a tough October. There's no doubt about it. Someone said, I'm hungry for a McRib. Mr. Nate Harper of Deep Network. Let's go. Can't get a McRib by ETB. Oh, I think you meant EBT. Yeah. EBT, no McRib. Sorry, buddy. Hey, hopefully you're holding Bitcoin. You can use that maybe at some point. I wouldn't sell my Bitcoin, but especially for a McRib. I don't even know what kind of meat that is, man. Let's be real. Am I lagging a little bit? I don't know what's going on with my internet here. Hopefully it's not too bad, guys. Let's break into some of the macro stuff. I am going to touch on the broader crypto, but I'm going to really hone in on 4 deep in projects that I have pretty much consolidated a lot of my portfolio into. I'm going to give my reasoning why on that. I don't know why I'm lagging. It's really, really annoying. All right. Let's start off with the newest on the government shutdown. So it looks like the Senate did pass things, move it forward. It needs to go to the House. It's going to be voted on tomorrow afternoon. It says that it should be a tight vote, but they expect that it will pass. They I guess they can only afford to lose 2 votes from the Republican side for it to pass. Something like Thomas Massey is likely to vote no, but Democrats also have a couple that could move to the other side. So it sounds like this should get passed through the House tomorrow, and then on the president's desk as soon as Thursday morning is what I'm reading. So from that end, it would be good for liquidity. We know it's been pulling a lot of liquidity from markets. On the other end of things, though, and by the way, let's look at Poly Market. So it looks like indeed 95% chance this thing is done. And if it was Thursday, that would fall into this group here. So the 13th. So looks very likely. One of the things that I think we need to also realize on the other end of this is while the liquidity is really good, we're all of a sudden going to start getting these reports from the job market that we haven't had to see for a while. Says here that U.S. employers announced 153,074 job cuts in October, 175% surge in the highest for any October since 2003. So not great news there. You see this article from NPR. Is the job market getting worse? So this is what we know. It says that policymakers tend to look at the BLS reports, but basically they've been furloughed for more than 5 weeks. So we haven't seen any numbers from September and October. What will those look like? It says that U.S. businesses announced plans to cut the number I just cited, 153,000, the worst October in more than 2 decades. Tech firms and warehousing companies reported some of the biggest downsizing plans. Says on the other end of things, though, ADP, which handles payroll for more than 26 million U.S. employees, said that it counted an increase in the number of private sector employees last month after 2 months of decline. So mixed things right now. But with all the layoff reports we're seeing, certainly it could be ugly, guys. We don't know exactly what the job numbers are going to look like, but we will find out pretty soon now. Once the government's back up and running, that is something people need to consider. Everyone's just saying it's going to be some huge bullish event. Yes, liquidity is great. It'll be nice to have things back up and running and for people to start getting paid, obviously. But from a market standpoint, we need to consider the fact that the job market has been super shitty, and we're finally going to see numbers that we haven't had to really pay attention to for the last 6 weeks or so. We have this news on the market structure bill. Touched on this a little bit last night, but this is arguably the most important crypto legislation that's ever been passed. As of right now, it looks like things are moving in the right direction. Let's see here. Kalshi has some betting odds on this. So 51% chance. So it sounds like things are certainly moving forward. So I'm hopeful that we can get this done by the end of the year. If not, I would imagine it might bleed into next year, but good news nonetheless. They've been working on this for some time. As far as the rate cuts go in December, right now, still very high likelihood of a 1/4 point cut. If we look at Kalshi, you're seeing the same thing, basically 72% chance of a 1/4 point cut. I call this out because there's a lot of accounts right now that are saying this type of stuff. 7 out of 12 members support a 50 basis point cut. I see reports saying that it's confirmed the 50 basis point cut in December. And I look through the comments and everyone's like, oh my God, this is so bullish. It's like, guys, these are engagement posts. This is complete bullshit. There's one member of the Fed, that Stephen Moran guy, who also dissented the last time for 50 basis points, but he was only one. So 25 basis points is really what is expected at this point. I've been calling these people out, like, stop engagement posts. Like, people actually believe this stuff. Everybody's like reposting this. I mean, look at this. Like 487 people reposted this bullshit post. That's not factually correct at all. Not even close to it. So unfollow these unserious people if you're seeing these types of posts. The other thing I touched on yesterday was what Trump said here about the $2,000 payout.
We're going to issue a dividend to our middle income people and lower income people of about $2,000. And we're going to use the remaining tariffs to lower our debt. We're going to be lowering our debt, which is a national security thing.
So, this is, report that was circulating after he said this. Everyone was talking about how, when we had stimulus go out during COVID, it was a huge boon for risk on markets. And if it did happen, it would be. But I don't know that it's going to happen, guys. I mean, especially not likely to happen this year. Right now, looking at 8% chance of this happening before the end of 2025. Could it be something that happens next year? Maybe. But markets are largely ignoring it at this point. I think that's a good thing. I would believe it when I see it. You also saw this follow-up tweet from him basically saying, hey, if they rule against the tariffs, Supreme Court, it would end up costing us $2 trillion. So a lot of people are citing the fact that we'd have to pay back all the tariffs that were collected. But I think now he's even throwing around numbers like $3 trillion. Some of these, in the negotiations, some of these countries said that they would invest X amount of dollars into our country. We have to still see that stuff play out. But regardless of that, I think he could be, positioning himself and posturing to get support on the tariffs. If people are thinking they're going to get $2,000, obviously public support is going to be there. And then as far as them overruling, he could make the argument, we've seen this with things in the past, that it would be too difficult to undo what's already being done to get a ruling in his favor. So how will this play out? We have to continue watching, but at least the government should be back up and running on Thursday. Then let's pay attention to the labor numbers and see what comes from that. Talking about the crypto side of things, fear and greed index sitting at 26. We have seen a lot of downtime, a lot of fear in markets. That's generally the time to be adding, and that is what I have been doing. I've been bringing this up nonstop. When you're down here, man, it's time to be adding. When you're up here, maybe it's time to shave some positions and move into more stable coins. But regardless of all that, whatever your mindset is, generally speaking, historically, when we're in extreme fear down here, that it has been a good time to be adding to positions. If we look at some of the prices in the markets today, Bitcoin sitting at just under $103,000. We got to about 107 last night, so we're seeing things come back down to earth a bit. This is something we've been seeing a lot this year. markets, pumping sometimes on a Sunday, pullbacks on Tuesdays, then we see pumping again on Thursday. Will we see that? I mean, the news of the government being back up and running could happen, Thursday morning. So that could certainly push markets up. Although we've seen plenty of times where it's been buy the rumor, sell the news events, this year too. This story, though, with Bitcoin, and this is something that Bitcoin is in the news for today, the Chinese government is accusing the U.S. of taking part in a massive cryptocurrency theft, claiming that Washington seized 127,000 Bitcoin worth $13 billion that were stolen from a Chinese mining pool back in 2020. So I saw a lot of this being posted today. It goes on to say that open source blockchain forensics from Arkham, which is one that most people know of, show that wallets were compromised due to weak random number generation. It is not a state-led attack. The U.S. Department of Justice later seized the same wallets. So that's the claim here, is that they were. It was a hack, not done by the U.S., but the U.S. did seize those wallets later due to alleged money laundering. Okay. So it goes on to say that then in mid 2024, the stash was quietly transferred to new wallets, and Arkham identified those wallets as controlled by the U.S. government. So China's taking this stance that they dispute Washington's position that the funds were criminal proceeds. They're saying the U.S. Had an operation that may have been linked to the original attack. The U.S. says that's not true, that they were seized legally. If we look at the government wallet right now, you'll see here the balance has gone up quite a bit. We're sitting on 326,000 Bitcoin now. Earlier this year, a few months ago, they had that seizure of, I think it was like 120,000 Bitcoin or something around that number, maybe 125,000, with that huge seizure that took place. Of course, it's important to note that not all this Bitcoin, not all $33.7 billion is necessarily owned by the government. It's held by the government. A lot of this has been seized, but it has to go through legal proceedings before it can then be deemed, being owned by the U.S. At that point, it can move into our strategic reserve. But a large percentage of this still needs to go through legal proceedings before it actually falls under ownership of the U.S. government. Currently, it's just being held by the U.S. government. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Ethereum sitting at 34.43. Gosh, we did see it break up again above 3,600 last night, but back now in this range. This is a precarious spot for Bitcoin and Ethereum, guys. Like we needed to hold above, right? I think Ethereum, we're looking at like 2,800. We've seen Bitcoin bounce off 98, 99,000 a few times. So right now we're kind of in this chop zone where we can still break down. But there are certain levels that we can break above and we can get back into a bullish sentiment. But right now it's not really, you can't really define which way we're going to go at this point. We're kind of in this consolidation chopping phase. We kind of have to see what the market does in the way it moves before we can say we have a breakout to either direction. So kind of boring right now, frankly. Solana sitting at $156.57. This obviously has broken down quite a bit below where we were back in August. Not fantastic fundamentals there, though. It's the number one revenue chain for app revenue. So Solana is where the building's taking place, guys. I'd say Solana and Base. I mean, those are the two places that, for me, I'm looking at those two ecosystems for any type of investments. In fact, the 4 Deepin projects I want to highlight today are all on Solana and Base. So those are the places where the building's taking place. I think that's the place where when the market takes back off, those are the plays that are going to run, in my opinion. Perhaps the biggest news, though, and I think this has been largely overlooked, Robinhood has partnered with Jupiter, guys. You can now swap and trade SPLs. SPL is Solana-based tokens with Jupiter Ultra API, best-in-class execution all in one place. But it says here that Jupiter Exchange now has a direct API into Robinhood. So that's freaking huge. One of the problems with Robinhood, in my opinion, has been that they just have really limited crypto offerings. So this is a pretty big deal. I haven't had a chance to go in and test it out myself to see what all assets are there, but I do know that Robinhood is looking to get more and more exposure into crypto, get more and more, stocks on chain. So, the more we can get access to some of these, especially deep in place, we get some of those listed in there, that'd be huge. But it's a big deal for sure. But overall, guys, like kind of staying put right now in my positions. As far as like large caps go, I know I brought this up, but following Brandon pretty closely, he's received a lot of hate recently on X. Like people are saying he's like screenshotting P&L statements and all this. It's honestly ridiculous. Like I did join his Discord. I went back through all of his market calls and they've all been spot on. They're all date stamped, right? So, and time stamped. So like, people are saying, oh, he didn't make that much money. Like, even if he didn't, which I have no reason to believe he didn't, but like, I don't care. If he's out there and he's publicly calling these prices in when he's going long and he's been winning, I don't understand why I think people are just jealous, honestly. It's freaking weird. There's a lot of haters out there, but he doesn't, he rarely posts high conviction plays like when market conditions are good to trade in. Right now with the sideways chopping, there's not really any great structure to trade off of. But I am following him closely for any short-term types of trades or positions I want to take. The other is, of course, Sistine Research. He's been really spot on a lot of times. One in particular I called out last night that I did get some exposure to is this Nano XNO. Guys, he was calling this for days in this low 90s range. And I did mention that I took some profit from my RWE position when it pumped last week when I told you guys like that it felt inorganic. Did take some profits there because it is on crypto.com where we have access to both of these. Very easily took a position in XNO on Nano. It's done quite well. Where we are at 92 cents. What are we up like 50% since then, roughly? So it's been a good call by Sistine. But I'm looking to maybe make some of these here and there. Other than that, though, like guys, we've been researching the deep in plays and really pouncing when the market's down. So I want to highlight 4 plays today and my thought process as to why I've been really consolidating into these 4 more than other plays at this point. Number 1, of course, is helium. This is a chart when you look at the all-time. Frankly, this is not a chart I'd be interested in. Okay, you saw a huge pump in the last market cycle. We saw this kind of die down, sell off, and it's just been pretty ugly ever since. Okay. Fundamentally, it's very strong. Okay. So if you look at their Helium Mobile subscription growth, you can see here the number of subscribers that are being added, newly minted. You see the trend there is moving up. That's fantastic. When you look at the fact that, if it's the price below 249, it's been net deflationary. Okay, so that means that the supply is actually decreasing. You see the buybacks moving up in the right direction. You see here's the net deflationary effects of the decrease in supply. Those are all great things, right? You look at DeFi Llama, look at the revenue growth metrics. Obviously, we're in November now, but things are moving in the right direction there. So fundamentally, everything's moving in the right direction. But going back to the chart, right? Like we just seen the fundamentals were growing and the price is bleeding out. Well, the one thing that took place was back here at about $1.82 on October 17th. And I was very, very public about this, made a lot of posts about it and why I was adding to a position here. Something fundamentally changed at that point. They announced they're going to do open market buys. So they connected their fundamentals with their token price. Up until that point, there was a disconnect. So to me, yeah, looking at this chart, it's like, man, this is an ugly freaking chart. Like I generally wouldn't just be buying into a project like this, but within the last month, the fundamentals were always there, but now the token price is tied to those fundamentals. And this is something that absolutely changed for the project. And you'll see since I, announced that I was buying and heavily adding to my position, we went from $1.82 up to $2.34. So it's been quite a run, albeit while the market conditions have been mostly horrible. So this is a project that, the revenue is still growing. I think that those changes should bode well for HNT looking forward. So that is a project that I have made a bigger holding in my portfolio that I intend to hold. While we kind of work through these market conditions that are uncertain, knowing that, hey, at some point things are going to turn around. The next one is GeoNet. So GeoNet continues to also thrive on the fundamental side, now up to almost 21,000 miners. You look at the map, you'll see they have great presence all over the world. Recently Masari put out their report. The metrics are growing, seeing massive growth in revenue quarter over quarter. You're seeing burns also on the right track. If you look at the Blockworks dashboard here for GeoNet, let's see here. You'll see the burns here. You'll see the burn rate. This is what I want to point out. So right now, guys, like 84% of emissions are being burned. This is closing in on being net deflationary. Part of that is that the revenue is growing. The other part of that is we're seeing the prices super low right now. So something's got to give at some point. So when I'm looking at GeoNet and you start adding some context, you'll see that, hey, the stations are growing, the deployments are growing, revenues growing exponentially, token burns are growing. The other thing, you look at the miner issuance. Every June there's a halving event, so emissions are going to be cut down even more. So, if all things were equal today and emissions were cut in half, we'd be absolutely net deflationary. Now, we saw what happened with helium when they went net deflationary and we're doing open market buys. GeoNet's also doing open market buys. So you have two scenarios here in helium and GeoNet, where fundamentals are off the charts growing, and they're doing open market buys and burns. So you have it all tied to the fundamentals of the token. Those are things that I'm very, very interested in. You also can see the burn wallet here. 2.5% of the total supply has been burned forever out of the supply. So that is why, like, looking at GeoNet, very different chart. This is the all-time chart. It hasn't really had its moment yet. I mean, yeah, I got up to the upper 30s, but we're down a little bit over 50% from all-time highs, but it hasn't had its 20, 30x moment. I think part of that is because it was on Polygon. They never had any major centralized exchange listings yet. So, it's been a slow burn while the fundamentals are just cooking, and you have, open market buys taking place. Now they're transitioning over to Solana. It's going to be a lot easier for them to get centralized exchange listings. And they're hitting that robotics narrative that I expect to really take off. So that's why with GeoNet, I'm like, hey, I think the best is yet to come. You look at helium, going back again. We don't need this to hit an all-time high to have a great return. Okay. But fundamentals are there, and they change the way they're doing open market buys to give support to the price of the token. So I don't care. Even if we don't get back to, $50+ this thing runs to $20, a 10x from where we're at. Okay, so that is why those are the two projects, two of the four I'm going to cover here, that I'm very interested in. The next is Aoki Network. It's another one. They had their TGE just over a year ago. They haven't had their big moment yet either. And they're hitting the robotics narrative. But it's not just a narrative, guys. Like, this is their CEO. In a video recorded interview with CZ and, man, why am I drawing a blank on, oh, goodness gracious. I'm drawing a blank. Arthur Hayes, sorry. So Arthur Hayes and CZ sitting there with the CEO, Nils, of Aoki Network. Okay, he's hitting the robotics sector. They're based out of Hong Kong. They're working with Chinese robotics manufacturers. They're super transparent. They do updates every Friday morning. And the stuff they're working on is actually nuts. And it's not just robotics, guys. They're doing VR as well. They're doing spatial intelligence. And that is going to be absolutely huge. You look at what's happening in China versus the US right now. Like, China is light years ahead of us in robotics, but they're also doing a lot of open source programming, whereas the US is not. Huge market for them to tap into. And you have this type of post. He says, a large robotic manufacturers visited our lab in Hong Kong. We showed them what Aoki could do, how much faster we can go to market together. And after seeing our latest demo, guy just shakes my hand and says, accelerate. Okay. Says thank you and accelerate. So Aoki, again, hasn't had its big run yet. Sitting at 1.68 cents. This one I've been adding to on the dips, heavily. I'm going to continue doing so. Another one where I think the biggest days are ahead. Robotics. I think they're going to be one of the robotics leaders that people look to. And they're tapping into that Chinese robotics market. They have several large contracts already. Okay. So what did we cover? Helium, GeoNet, and Aoki Network. The last one, of course, is 375 AI. Hello, Julie. Welcome. 375 AI, guys. It's up to 6.1 cents. I've been just hammering this nonstop. I know you guys are to the point where you guys are probably annoyed, but I'm like, guys, 3.3 cents. It got down to 2.8 cents. This thing was just bleeding down here right after their TGE because all the people got the airdrop sold. And then we saw things recover. So 375 AI is absolutely killing it. They announced today that they have a partnership with the Kave network for their storage of their data, because at these different locations, they are basically creating a historical data set of the traffic that goes by those areas. So cool to see them integrating. Kave is built on Filecoin infrastructure, by the way, so decentralized infrastructure. They also got listed for custody on Coinbase Prime. Pretty sweet there. They also announced a partnership with Wingbits and Beacon Protocol. So Beacon Protocol takes AI data and makes it actionable. Wingbits is a flight tracking network I've interviewed their CEO. It's on my channel. If you haven't seen it already, you should check it out. Makes sense. They've got high value real estate. They've got power and internet going out to these different locations where they're installing their hardware, their cameras. They're going to partner with more and more deep end projects where you can, if you have that location on that billboard in high traffic areas, they're going to have a bunch of other deep end hardware that's installed there. So I would expect to see more types of partnerships with 375 AI moving forward, guys. The other thing to consider here is that you look at the different listings. The original public sales at 7.5 cents. Remember, right now we're at 6.1 cents. We're below the token sale to the public. And we are just above now the price that their original funding occurred at 5.5 cents for their original investors. Their tokens are locked for 4 years. So 1 year cliff in a 3-year vesting schedule, you can literally get in near the price. Now, last week when I was talking about this, I was like, you guys can get in well below the price their investors got in at. Things change quickly, y'all. I still am adding to my bag. I've been DCAing, but, we're sitting at 6.1 cents now. This thing, again, not even about a week ago, we were sitting at 2.8 cents. Freaking nuts, man. This is one of the highest conviction plays because of the fundamentals and the price that I've seen in some time. But one of the things I was pointing out today was the amount of volume on this token right now, 200 million in 24 hours. It does appear there was a Bybit campaign. That's why. Because you look at, that type of volume compared to the market cap and the FDV is insane. That is not normal or organic. Generally speaking, volume, you want to see 10% of the market cap, not, 20 times the market cap. So there's definitely something. There's a Bybit situation going on over there that's driving some of that extra volume. But guys, this is a project that, to me, is going to be one of those ones that people look back and it's going to be one of the biggest wins. And I posted about this nonstop over the last week. We also had Harry Dewhurst on, their CEO, on the space this morning, and he was talking about the potential total addressable market. 80% of commerce is done in person, 20% is done online. He said that the data online is about a $200 billion, I believe was the number he used, market. He said that, that blind spot for that data in person, multiply that by 4 potentially. You're looking at $800 billion to $1 trillion industry, potentially total addressable market. They don't need to capture a lot of that, guys, to be a very successful project. The goals he threw out there for revenue goals is 9 figures. Okay, so over $100 million. I believe they'll get there. I believe they will get there. Not tomorrow, but I think it'll happen at some point. And that is why, for me, 375 AI is an easy play. Still sitting at only a $13 million market cap. That's insanity, guys. So again, Helium, GeoNet, been around for a while, both doing open market buys. Fundamentals are off the charts. You've got Aoki Network, newer token, been around for just over a year, hitting that robotic side of things. Also has real world revenue, guys, and it's growing. The things they're doing are massive. And 375 AI, man, all of these have A+ teams. But again, they already have buyers of their data. They're expanding. They're going to absolutely crush it. So those are the four that I have really consolidated a lot of my positions into. Not to say I'm not still holding bags of other things, but those are the ones where I've been really concentrating my efforts, kind of getting ready for when the market does return and we start to see things move up again. When will that happen? Guys, I wish I had a crystal ball. We can look at the macro events taking place. We do know this. Quantitative tightening is ending. We expect another rate cut to happen. Liquidity should return as we just got news here. Looks like that might be old news. I just got a notification that the vote passed, but I believe that was probably from the Senate. I think the House vote's happening tomorrow. But government's going to be back up and running again, guys. We're going to get liquidity back in the markets. All that's great, but QE hasn't started yet. To me, quantitative easing, when the liquidity really comes back into markets, that's what we need. I expect next year that's going to happen. Jerome Powell's out in May. We're going to have a new Fed chair. I think they're going to be cutting rates pretty drastically. I think QE is going to be turned on. I think that we're going to see a lot of deregulation in markets. I would expect leading up to the midterms, they're going to do whatever they have to do to juice markets. So will we see some pumps between now and then? I think we could, for sure. But I don't think we see the full-on alt season that we're hoping for until we really see liquidity push into markets. So that's what we got to keep an eye on. Whew. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks for coming in, Julie. 619. Appreciate you. Nate Harper in the house. Check out Deep Network too, guys. I think they're having their TGE, I think this year. But if Nate will confirm that or not. But appreciate you all. Listen, I would highly encourage you to listen to that space I had earlier with the 375 AI CEO. He shared a lot of really good information about their vision and where they're going with that project. To me, that's been one of the most no-brainer undervalued plays over the last week. It's obviously done quite well, but I think we are just getting started personally. All right, y'all. Have a fantastic day. Touch some grass. I wish I could. There's snow everywhere outside in Chicago, so I can't. But I do intend to get outside and get some fresh air after this. Peace.